I talked about a black father who had the parent of his child's bully jumped. I was critical of this person. I was not happy with that father's decision. Black Twitter had a different vibe. People in the night school audience had a different feeling about it. A lot of y'all had a different feeling about it. So I want to run this thing back and talk to David and Hope about it to get a sense of what they say.
A 7-year-old girl who had to watch me and my brothers jump her daddy after school. I'm sorry. I know that was probably a traumatizing experience for you. But we kept asking you to stop bullying my daughter and you wouldn't listen. We sent letters home. We even had a meeting with you and your parents and you wouldn't listen. So now you know your actions have consequences. And since you're too young to receive those consequences, you had to watch your daddy take those consequences. Get some therapy. You'll be all right.
Get some therapy. You'll be all right. And then people again got mad at what he said. I got mad. Other people got mad. He offered a response to us. Listen to this.
Y'all keep asking why I didn't fight this man one-on-one and why I got my brothers to jump him in front of his 7-year-old daughter. And the answer is simple. Life is not fair. You get jumped by responsibilities every day. Bullying is not fair because you're picking on somebody that's essentially a weaker vessel and that's smaller than you. So I wanted to make sure she saw what it looked like when a fight is not fair and you don't have no choice but to let somebody jump you, so she could get the concept of what she was doing. Sometimes kids learn from what they see and not what they hear. So I wanted it to be a visual experience, okay? I'm out here doing the Lord's work, okay? God is pleased with me whether or not y'all are.
Wow. You get jumped by life's responsibilities is a wild sentence to me. And I think his kid is in the back seat right now. I don't know if it's the same daughter, but I'm like, I mean, he's standing 10 toes on this. What surprised me was how many people in my audience and on social media who otherwise oppose bullying, who are anti-violence, who challenge hypermasculinity, all that stuff. People who believe in restorative justice, all that stuff. And I see Hope. I know Black women well to know when Hope doing that nod up and down. It's like, I'm gonna agree with everything you're saying, but there's a huge however coming. All them people were like, yes, that's what I want done. I would do the same thing. I hope. Please explain. And David, oh my God, I need y'all to explain to me why this is okay, because I am not following it.
Okay. First of all, I'm gonna lean on David's shirt. Teach the babies, right? Teach the babies. And when I followed all the protocols that were available to me, right? I had the conferences. I had several conversations with you as a child, and that was out of line, right? We're not even talking about the fact that he said that he addressed this child without the parents, right? But he did. Then he addressed this child with the parents. He addressed this child with the parents and teachers and faculty present. And then he allowed you to parent. And that parenting did not work for him because his child kept experiencing violence. And so what he did, because he could not come at you as a child and as a man, knowing that getting in the space where there's a young girl involved, he understood the risk factor. But there's no risk factor in whooping your ass, right? Because I've come to you as a man and I've stepped in, I've pulled you to the side, I've done all the things. And so since you can't control your household, I'm going to control you so that you feel more inclined to do better at being the leader of your home and being the leader of your child who is messing over my child. And I think that we talk about the idea of what it means to have trauma, and we talk about what it means to traumatize these babies. And we always talk about people walking away from it and being a bigger person. But that person that walks away is often left with trauma. As a Black trans woman who grew up queer, I walked away with trauma. I can still tell you what my bullies looked like in great detail to this day. And it is because I was told to walk away, be the bigger person. Oh, they're not going to amount to anything. You're so smart. You're so talented. And that's cute. But I would have loved it if my mama came to the school and beat their ass, because that's what you need. And so now, because
I get, but Hope, well, I get, like, all right, so somebody's bullying you in high school. You got a couple options. If I'm your parent, I'm not old enough to be your parent. I just want to put that out there. I got gray, but I ain't that old. I would tell you, and I dealt with bullies as a parent of a now grown child. There's a couple options. One, fight back. Mm-hmm. Right? I have no problem with you whooping the bully's ass. Right? I have no problem with you getting your cousin to come whoop the bully's ass.
Mm-hmm.
Again, none of these are plan A. This is after we've exhausted all the proper measures, right? Exactly. I got no problem. I'm not a pacifist. I'm saying, like, we can do these things. I think where it starts to get off the rails for me is if your mama or daddy doesn't come and whoop the bully's ass, but goes and finds the bully's daddy somewhere and whoops his ass. That's where it seems to me to be a little off the rail.
Because we're 7. We're not in high school.
No, but also, like, ain't no such thing as a fair fight. So let's just start from that premise, right? Like, Mark, what doesn't work for me is the abacus math, because that assumes that, like, both sides are fair, right? That it's like one child, or they got one cousin. What's problematic about all of that is the first part of your intervention, which is that, like, bullies exist because they leverage power over other people, a point that the father made. And so I just want to reframe how it is that we are processing this, acknowledging those two things. No such thing as a fair fight. And we have to do more to understand that often our responses to bullies are superficial at best and don't actually get at the root cause. The concern I have about all of what we're talking about and how this usually plays out is that, like, there usually is no end, right? If it's, you know, daddy and uncle jump this week, then somebody else is coming with somebody else the following week. And the concerns are usually, when I grew up in the 80s in Inglewood, at some point somebody's going to be dead, or this going to turn into some neighborhood beef. Or what if if somebody presses charges? To step back from the technical aspects of this, one, I want to shout out my boy Jason Parham, my frat brother Prentice Penny. And if you haven't seen the Black Twitter documentary on Hulu, everybody should see it. And I want to just name that some of what explains the response that people are having on Twitter, especially these contradictory responses, is the fact that this man talks good, he's handsome, and people like the fact that what he said rings well. And so I want to just put all of that out there because that's how I process this. And my hope is that after we get through talking about the superficial or surface level aspects of this, we really understand that we've got an opportunity to do more to address bullying culture and to ensure that kids can just simply be safe.
And I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, because part of the fair fight thing I might disagree on. If two people are having a one-on-one fight and two people jump out the car and whoop their ass, to me that's excessive. But I get your point. In this case, it wasn't about fighting the dad; it was about teaching a lesson about bullying.
Yeah,
that 7-year-old who's a bully may be now traumatized for the rest of their life. Now I get it. The kid who was
already traumatized, which is why they're a bully.
Exactly. And so I'm thinking from a restorative approach, how do we get at the thing that's causing people to cause harm and make the person who is being harmed whole? I want to deal with both of those things and not prioritize them evenly. I mean, somebody's being harmed. That's the urgent thing. I'm with all of that.
What happened, but I think that's what happened here. Like David said, it's often the trauma that's happening at home is often informing the way that the behavior shows up at school. And so my thing is also, now that we think about it and we're unpacking and pulling back the layers, who's to say that the father wasn't the problem and the reason for the bullying to begin with? So now that he's been humbled, he can go home and not do the things that have been causing her to feel like she has to go to school and lash out on somebody else. In fact, I do understand that.
The kid hates his dad. Keep on going. Whoop his ass tomorrow.
It's usually the opposite. This is where, so I do want to name that I'm sure our Jesus is somewhere like how I get brought into this, but I think that's actually a part of the answer, which is that we need to go to like the church where people actually know how to pray and lay hands and figure out ways to have actual conversations with one another, because this ain't it. But this ain't what the brother was on. He wanted to be clear that he was trying to stand on business, and business looked like putting hands on somebody. And my hope is that there's still opportunity for the restorative conversation and work to happen on the back end.
The other thing that struck me, there was a young man, his name is Sammy Touche. He's from Indiana. He's 10 years old. He killed himself this week. He was bullied at school, and he died by suicide on May 5th. It just came out this week, but the kids made fun of him because of his teeth and because of his glasses. Yeah. They said they reported this to school more than 20 times.
Yeah.
And nothing happened. I got to be honest with you. That resonated with me after this came out. I found this out later and I was like, God, so if I'm the parent, what do I do? right? Because I have a very clear analysis of what I think you shouldn't do. I admit it, right? But I don't necessarily have a great answer for what to do outside of bring your cousins up and whoop the bullies' ass. And I don't think that's the ultimate answer. That still doesn't fix the problem. None of this violence fixes the problem. But again, we have to be realistic and honest about an imperfect world and say that sometimes you got to stop. You got to stop the bleeding. Like, you got to stop the pain. You got to stop the harm. And right now, my kid's getting effed up every day. I can't sit here and pretend that this is an abstract, hypothetical, academic discourse on it. So I hear that. I hope it's saying she would do the exact same thing as this parent. David, would you do the exact same thing?
Possibly. And after whipping somebody's ass, I'd want to hold space for us to engage in the real work, Mark. So what I know is that my research studying the experiences of Black LGBTQIA+ students, often students who are assumed to be queer, trans, or gender expansive, says that the way that we think about safety in school is simply wrong, right? Often the response to bullying is to isolate the victim of that experience in ways that empower the bully, that don't identify or address the root causes of bullying. There's never an opportunity to do things that we as African people know work, which is to create community, to have conversations about difference, to celebrate the fact that all of us are different, and to find beauty in those facts. I'm saying this acknowledging that, yes, if someone were to put their hands on my niece Jordan or my nephews Jet and Jax, the Inglewood in me might be the first visceral response. And I would then follow that up with applying all of this education that I didn't learn to hopefully try and shift things in ways that are both meaningful and measurable.
Agreed.
Okay. Fair enough. One thing I know for sure, if any of our kids or relatives go to the same school, I'm gonna tell them to stay the hell away from y'all kids and relatives. Because I don't want no smoke. I don't want the DC coming out. I don't want the Inglewood coming out. I want no parts of nothing.
I'm going straight back to the Poker Bean projects.
I'm the nice sibling. You don't want no smoke with my sister.